we had another meeting on the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, but that was another exercise in anti-Russian rhetoric, which we had a couple of last weeks. Perhaps I will not comment on the comments that were made and on the statements. You've heard that, and you've heard our statement. To a large extent, it was again an exercise in fakes. We noticed that today the Ukrainian ambassador chose another tactics. He started to accuse us in what we accused the Ukrainians. I do not engage in personal exchanges with him, but when he asked about the eyes of children killed, I would also like to ask him whether he had any remorse when he thought about the children of Donetsk that were killed by Ukrainian forces. I will not dwell on who is more humane. That's not the point of my coming to you. I wanted to tell you what you heard in the end of my statement, that due to extreme hypocrisy and cynicism by our partners who are advocating for the immediate solution of difficult, somewhere dire humanitarian situation in Ukraine, they refused to discuss our draft, which was basically based on their draft, but it was made humanitarian instead of political. And they just demonstrated that they didn't need a humanitarian resolution by the Security Council. They needed another resolution, as I said at the Stakeout when we announced it, another resolution to blame and shame Russia. And that testifies to their real aims. And that's why they chose to go to the General Assembly, and they are working tirelessly on the membership, we know it for sure, to make them vote in favor of that resolution, which will not be strictly humanitarian, which will have an effect that the Security Council resolution would. As they worked on the Security Council members to kill our resolution. So we decided not to go forward with the draft at this stage. We are not withdrawing it. We keep it in blue. But for the time being, we will postpone voting on it.
Ambassador, please. Ambassador, you talk about pressure during your speech on countries. Can you be more explicit? Can you tell us that there is some pressure on China, for example?
I'm sure there is pressure on all the countries, like it was before the voting on the resolution in the General Assembly. I received calls by many ambassadors who were telling me, I will quote one in particular. He told me, I will vote yes, because I got instructions from my capital, despite that we wanted to abstain, because you cannot even imagine what kind of pressure and blackmail were exerted upon us by the Western countries, and in particular US. That's not a secret. They were working on that. Many delegations that were prepared to abstain on the 2nd of March received instructions in the last minute to vote in favor. That is the result of that pressure.
Ambassador,
same tactics is used here.
Ambassador, I have colleagues who are out in Ukraine who have seen with their own eyes the atrocities being committed by Russia in Ukraine. You've been in the United States the whole time. Who's more likely to know what exactly is going on?
Look, what kind of atrocities are you referring to?
I'm talking about narrow trenches in Mariupol with babies' bodies in. I'm talking about theatres in Mariupol being bombed by Russia.
The theatre in Mariupol was not bombed by Russia. I spoke about it, and you may refer to my statement. I do not know anything about the trenches with killed babies in it. I haven't seen it, but I've seen.
AP journalists.
But I've seen so many fakes. We have this information war, which is raging on a much greater scale than on the battlefield. And I will not be surprised at anything, because who wins the information war? The one wins the war.
Do you truly believe what you're saying?
We often hear Russia as a permanent member saying that there needs to be a diplomatic solution. You tell this to other countries countless times. Why here will you not call for a ceasefire, stop the offensive, and negotiate with Ukraine?
We are negotiating with Ukraine. The talks are going.
While the fighting continues.
What? While the fighting continues, yeah.
Why not stop the fighting?
Because we came there with goals announced. We want to demilitarize Ukraine, to denazify it, and to make Ukraine a neutral state which is not threatening Russia.
But why stop the
But
fighting until that's achieved?
negotiating are going on.
What evidence are you going to bring tomorrow on chemical and
We
biological
have additional
weapons?
information on that, and I
New
think it deserves new information, that it deserves being discussed in the Security Council. And that's not a joke, that's not a Russian propaganda, because more and more people in the West, including US and UK, are asking questions on that military bio programs that US was conducting in Ukraine, and not just in Ukraine. That applies to many US-sponsored laboratories around the world.
Mr. Ambassador,